Igor, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to have this nice conversation with you. And with all of us, I think one of the things, as we were just talking about, the past, present, and future of enterprise AI has a lot to do with us as humans, as beings. And as someone who designs something, I'm really interested in your human story, what your background is. So if we could start with the past, we'll take a step forward little by little and eventually end up in the future. How's that sound?
Yeah, do all of you appreciate how surreal this event is? I started working on this since 2002. My chief scientist has been working on this since 1981. There used to only be 6 of us in rooms like this. All right? This is like ugly duckling syndrome. I don't know where I am anymore. Yes, so in 2002, that's when I started leading the advanced multimodal research team at IBM. We discovered the baby version of Watson then. We were prototyping it in Miami Children's Hospital. We had it hidden in your cars, if you had Honda Accords and things of that sort. That was our embedded V-Voice products. Let's see, where was it? We hid it in college campuses like Wake Forest University so that students can ask if the laundromat is free or where the shuttle bus. We hid it in Epcot Center in the world of tomorrow for children to walk past. And then I get quoted by Popular Mechanics magazine. They're like, hey, what's one thing that you have the rest of us don't have? And I'm like, well, I can talk to my television. Find me a dolphin documentary. Go ahead and turn on the news. And so they quoted me. But on the title, this came out in May, I think, 2005, but they put the title as American 2025. And I'm like, I'm not gonna wait 20 years to be Professor X in a wheelchair talking to my television. And so I went back in the lab, I'm like, hey, what's something that we're working on? We were working on a secret project with Sony and Toshiba on cell architecture. You would know it as PlayStation 3. And I'm like, let's put a microphone on that thing. They laughed. They're like, nobody's gonna put a microphone in their house. The following year, we went to them and said, hey, let's free up the compute and the memory and budget there. Let's take that voice and move it to the cloud, host it up there because we can deliver a lot more accuracy and things of that sort and free resources. They were laughing their heads off. They're like, nobody's gonna allow their private voice to go somewhere else. Then the third year, we said, holy smokes, we capture the audio here, we process it over there, we can answer any question any human being has about anything in 1 second. Why is the sky blue? By then, you can imagine them falling out of their chairs with milk shooting out of their noses. So like Cartman from South Park, I said, screw you guys, I'm going home.
Well, so that story starts with an understanding of how technology and people sort of coexist, how we interact with them. And if you could go back to this idea about why you felt the need to hide things in places. What's the strategy there? What's the thinking around that? And maybe what was the insight you thought you had about how people understand interaction and interacting with knowledge itself?
Yeah, and that's why I appreciate your background as well. My parents are both artists. So intrinsically, what's really exciting about AI is it's a multidisciplinary field where everything collides, right? Psychology, the visual arts, audio, engineering, and the like. That's beautiful to me. We're very passionate. It's sort of like watching an opera, right? An opera is multidisciplinary, right? You have ballet, you have a story, you have music, you have the scene, you have the audience matters, right? They all have their dramatic tendencies as well as they're watching this as well. You can people watch. So it's all of these things coming together. So a year after we started the last company, I wore the same jacket at this conference called TechCrunch. It was lampooned in HBO's Silicon Valley show. I pull something out of my jacket and I talk into it and it talks out. Crickets. It was a room like this. Nobody knew what the heck I was showing them. What they didn't know, this was in 2007, is that we were secretly working with Apple on Siri. 5 years later, you still never heard of my company. We had almost, you probably were customers and you had no idea. We had almost 50 million users on that platform. 50 million. Dozens of enterprise and carrier customers like Sprint and Microsoft, and then we get secretly acquired by Amazon. Alexa's my older sister's name, which is a coincidence, and the code name for it was Pryon. So that's where that came from.
So that's very telling, because now we have a company called Pryon, which is going to do something new. All this technology exists already. It's baked into who we are, what we're doing, how we interact with people. And so let's move to the present. What is Pryon, and what are your objectives? What are your goals with this particular organization?
Yeah, and no offense to some of you that are in big tech companies, but you brought me out of bloody retirement, okay? 2017 comes around, and I'm like, why is this stuff not at work? Why is it not in critical infrastructure? Why do essential workers not have an enterprise AI? Crap, I have to catch my own football, okay? And so that's why this company was born. I'm like, there's going to be a natural language experience on top of the enterprise software stack. And so I started recruiting from, unfortunately, your organizations as well, because they weren't doing the job at that time. And we go ahead and constructed a brand new knowledge management platform. And our stuff is installed in some nice places now, and we're just chugging along.
So there's a moment happening now, and I think everyone sort of feels it. We talk about generative AI, we talk about large language models, vector databases, and all sorts of interesting pieces of technology. And you're choosing to bring them together in an interesting way. You came out of retirement, you got the jacket, you're suited up and ready to get back into action. What's happening now? Why now? Why is this moment, other than the fact that ChatGPT?
Right. Yeah, I live in the South. So you know what I think when I hear generative and LLMs and things like that? Bless your hearts. This stuff's been in there for decades. It's nothing new. What are you surprised by? You know why I didn't talk about it? Because it was like talking about carburetors and spark plugs. It was always in there as trade secrets and things of that sort. Now everybody knows about it. You know why? Because some weird things started happening with hallucinations and prompt injection attacks and reverse engineering training data. Because this weird stuff started happening, and normal people started getting in trouble, like those attorneys in New York and things like that. Reporters started writing more pieces and saying, how does this stuff work? That it does these interesting and unexpected things. And then the general population at large starts learning about the internals of these systems. But these internal systems, we had stuff like this. By the way, you think neural networks are new? Do you know what was inside of all of your Amazon Alexas? It was a trade secret. We called them lattices. We didn't even know to call it that. We had cloud before it was cloud. We called it something else because, again, the media didn't give it a name yet. So we had things that as Confluent or Apache Kafka streaming data. We had our own version of it because it didn't exist. So I'm sure in many of your organizations, you have things that people won't ever hear or know about. For a half decade later in the future, maybe by 2030, we'll know what it is because it'll be more prevalent. So this isn't new stuff.
So it's not new stuff, but they do say there's no such thing as bad press. And you pointed out that there were some hallucinations, injection attacks. There's some pretty troubling things that the world knows about. Is there some call to action now that we are all here, we're present, we're talking about these technologies, but also, to your point, much broader spectrum of the population knows, and this is becoming part of the zeitgeist, part of our common language. We were just speaking about that idea of having a common language for speaking about things. So is there an opportunity, particularly one that the audience, that everybody here, our community should take away about that we should take advantage of? More than just whiz-bang what these things can do, is there some way to bring some knowledge management that we are engaging in as a society that we need to take more advantage of?
So what's new is because it's easier to access these technologies, more people are using it for taboo use cases, right? The things that started happening since November onwards, people like most of us would have never done. We didn't get paid to field IT systems that make stuff up. That's not generally why we got into the business, right? We emitted facts to folks so that they can take it on, reduce the distance between knowledge and people, and create high quality decisions, based on the things that we were telling them. That's what we did for a living. right? So that's, that's something a little bit interesting. The other thing is, look, some of us built AI engines before GPUs existed, so we know that energy efficiency is a thing, so we need to be careful. We can't just burn the earth to try to save the earth, right? That doesn't make any sense.
So where does Pryon fit into this? What are the objectives with Pryon's sort of relevance to enterprise AI, and what's the mission that Pryon really wants to achieve?
Right. So one of the things, if you really want to key me off, it's if software is eating the world, AI is its teeth. Do you know how much nonsense that is? Let me tell you why. All the original AI stuff was what? Machine translations to help bridge cultures so that we can all understand each other. We were putting it in your car so you wouldn't crash into trees or utility poles texting while driving. We were doing it for handicapped folks to be part of our communities and things of that sort. Right? Think about all the places that we were putting this stuff. Those were the original folks that were getting attracted. So this platform, if we're going to put it in serious places, our stuff's in nuclear power plants. You don't hallucinate in a nuclear power plant, right? So what we care about is the intersection between accuracy, scale, security, and speed. And none of those need to be influenced by the others in any negative way. You need equilibrium amongst those four conditions.
So that suggests that we've gone from hiding sort of, let's say, surprise and delight moments within little places to actually living in an experiment. That's a very different way to think about how these tools are positioning themselves within our lives. What are some of the implications there? It seems like you've seen plenty of this happen. You've experimented with it. It does seem like we're living in a bit of a prototype phase with some serious implications.
Yeah, so I don't know if the rest of you caught this or not, but the internet and the web as we know it died last year. You know that, right? Because when we did our Google searches in the past, what did we get? We got text, we got images and videos and audio. The innovative creations of other fellow human beings that we adored and learned from and were influenced by. By the end of this decade, it's going to be a hall of mirrors of AI vomit. We're not going to know which end is up. So there's going to be a retreat and a flight to safety in the same way that in Nordic nations, they hide the fundamental seeds for all the plants that matter to us, trees that matter to us. We're going to have to also safeguard truth. Right? So that we can always go back to what is real, because we're not going to know which end is up. And you know what? When they talk about these models drifting and model collapse and things of that sort, we already have models for that. You know how extremists are born? Send them down a YouTube rabbit hole. That's what's going to end up happening with these AIs.
Well, and you're speaking about pristine data, which is a really interesting idea. You're suggesting there should be some sort of...
No, be careful. I'm sorry, I would never interrupt you asking.
No.
I never talk about pristine data. Humanity's not pristine. We're flawed and things of that sort. But there's elegance in organic composition. That's what I care about. Gotcha. I don't need it to be pristine. Some of you try to do this, research grade transcriptions and blah, blah, blah. No, the world's a dirty place. It's okay, but it needs to be organic.
Got it. So I won't use the word pristine. Let's say organic data. Artisan craft data, but if we have it, there should be some sort of seed vault for data. What does that look like? And I think we're moving into the future now. You're suggesting that we need to somehow preserve the current state. What's the risk? What's the challenge? What do we need to be concerned about there?
Well, we preserve the current state and also carefully allow new stuff that comes into that vault that's not GMO.
That doesn't sound like the... And I know we're making a lot of corollaries here, but that does not sound like it doesn't sound like the press I'm reading today. It seems like we're moving ever faster forward, but these kinds of questions, these sort of implications. Oop. Did I get cut out? I'm back. All right, we're back. We must have said something that people didn't want. These are not things that one company can do on its own, can it? It needs some sort of collaboration, some sort of extra organization beyond a single, or is this something that private organizations are going to help us to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's through a combination of a mess of partnerships between, government agencies, right, national labs, academic institutions, NGOs. There's a whole collective spirit around ideas like this, and I welcome working together with many of you on some of these problems. Maybe you'll see me in 15 years again. Who knows? I'm a goblin. I'm too busy working to come out to the stuff like
Let's
this.
not let him go anywhere this time, okay? Let's keep him around. Well, so in the last few minutes, and maybe we'll have a chance for a couple questions as well, but in the last few minutes, let's move into the future. Let's move, deep into the future. I don't know, 3 years, because it seems like we're moving pretty quickly. What do you see for us as a community, for us as a, I can't say species, but at least as a society? What are some of the things, like, let's say, top 3 things on your mind, good or bad, that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're working on a product, a roadmap, and a statement of direction, with a wide array of customers and partners. I mean, NVIDIA is a client. There's surprises, in terms of where we already are and where, we're operating behind the scenes in order to ensure that people are getting high quality output, from the system. This is a full stack system, by the way, and that tends to require a lot more time. That's why, there's going to be a large period of times that you won't see me, because by controlling the whole thing, you get the highest level of accuracy, scale, security, and speed. So that's a fixation for me. When you try to piecemeal it, it's auto parts. It's like sending you into an AutoZone and telling you to build a car from scratch. You'll do it if you're highly capable, but you're not going to get fit and finish and fuel efficiency and safety features that you kind of want out of the system.
Well, telling for the auto industry, because there's a major transformation happening there as well, with how it's compiled. So, I mean, that's a statement you're making about how we need to be building and thinking about these models. It's not simply a layer of the stack. It's a new stack.
It's you have to think of it, all of it together, right? You have to think of it in a multimodal way, in a multidisciplinary way. Think about the end user. How do you get content to experience as well? By the way, this is why Apple vertically integrates the chip, device, operating system, and application. By doing that, you get the best firepower with the lowest energy use as well. So there's mental models for this stuff in other systems where you could see it working well.
What are the implications for the open source community then? Given that we have lots of small developers who are also trying to participate, lots of large developers, and there's an active debate about sort of who is going to benefit the most and where that control is going to come from. So what do you think about that large enterprise versus small developer sort of continuum?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important element of the ecosystem, but you have to think of it as a test kitchen with the Swedish chef, right? That's what open source is. But the trillion-dollar companies aren't open source entities. They're built on proprietary core IP, and they use open source, at the boundary layers in order to create more stickiness to their respective ecosystems. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was working on the last company, everybody's like, Igor, you're a knucklehead, you're crazy. Why are you building your own decoder? Why are you building your own speech engines and things of that sort? Kai-Fu Lee's engine is sitting at Carnegie Mellon Sphinx. It's open source. You can go in and take it and just adapt it, build some models to it. And I'm like, I can't run Sprint and Microsoft's and other folks' business on that. It won't meet the conditions necessary to be telco grade at that scale. So while you can, open source is interesting even to the federal government in terms of rapid prototyping, things of that sort, but the actual skunk works behind the scenes that run the lights and things like that tend to be lots of proprietary bits. And so there's a paradox there, and both are healthy.
That suggests there's some method to the madness of releasing one's models to open source. It's not simply to give it to the world, but there must be some sort of counterpoint once you release them.
Yeah, and they're not actually giving it. It's like llama, drama llama. Right? They release it, oh my God, look at this open source thing, trying to bait all of you to start using it. But when you actually read the terms and conditions, it literally says, can't use it for defense intelligence, can't use it to support critical infrastructure, can't use it to blah, blah, blah. You will foot fault yourselves and your customers and your partners by leveraging this. So did they actually contribute to the rest of us as a community or not? right? Are you not allowed to create derivatives where you create, you know, downstream models based on it or not? I mean, it's a morass, and that's why, you know, in some cases for federal government agency, academic institutions, and commercial entities, I have a separate AI literacy little presentation that I give them, and I'm like, here's, you know, 15 plus gotchas. There's even copies of this in congressional leadership and things like that. So then when they hear about this stuff, they got to translate it into something. What does this mean? Okay, all right, this is what it means. Like, look at these coding tools. Look at these coding tools. It's like giving you a piece of candy where you're guaranteed to break your teeth, right? That's literally what they're giving you, because you can't use the output, right? It contaminates your code base. You're not even sure if the underlying models that they trained it on, they were allowed to take it because it's strict attribution and things of that sort from the open source community. So this is all a new world.
And maybe that's, I mean, I don't know if there's a way to end it. I think we're starting a conversation, not ending one. But maybe if we can, that's where we'll have to leave it for now, is that we are embarking on this journey of exploration, experimentation. We need to communicate more, we need to share more, but we need to recognize that we are living and working in a bit of an experiment, and that there are risks associated with that. And Pryon apparently is going to be part of that, because you're back and you're going to be actively part of this community and communicating with us.
Well, look, at the end of every G.I. Joe cartoon, they said half the battle is showing up.
All right, we are just about out of time, everybody. A big round of applause for the team at Pryon and Deloitte.